This movie is a thriller about two couples, Max and Roxanne, who have recently been released from prison and find themselves embroiled in a dangerous situation involving a child. As they strive for a fresh start and a decent life, they encounter unexpected challenges. The scene opens with Max and Roxanne scouting a small workspace as a potential business venture. Enthused about the opportunity, they visit a bank to secure a loan of $50,000 to purchase the space. However, their hopes are dashed when the bank declines their loan application, leaving them in a desperate financial situation. Amidst this disappointment, Max receives an unexpected offer from his former criminal associate Sydney to re-engage in illicit activities. After much deliberation and driven by their dire need for money, Max and Roxanne reluctantly decide to accept Sydney's proposition, intending it to be their final criminal endeavor. They are tasked with a risky mission: to kidnap David, the 8-year-old son of a wealthy woman. The kidnapping team, comprising Max, Roxanne, Sydney, and another accomplice named Vince, operate under the mysterious instructions of a person known only as Jones. Max, disguised as Santa Claus, infiltrates the home of David's mother, where he identifies and abducts the boy, who is found covering a dead vulture in the snow. When David's mother discovers her son is missing and finds a threatening note warning her against contacting the police, she frantically reports the kidnapping to emergency services. Max and Roxanne then transport David to a secluded location in the woods, intending to carry out their plan. Upon arrival, they are met by Vince and Sydney. A tense moment ensues when Max encounters a wolf, which Vince swiftly eliminates with a gun. The team then secures David in a room, instructing him to remove his blindfold once inside. Despite the criminal nature of their plan, Roxanne and Max show signs of affection toward David, prompting Vince to remind them that their primary goal is business, not childcare. Roxanne, visibly affected by Vince's comment, retreats to the kitchen. As the night falls, the group decides to contact Jones the next morning to determine their next steps. The tension among them is palpable as they grapple with the moral implications of their actions and the uncertain outcome of their scheme. The tension escalates as the characters grapple with the unforeseen complexities of their kidnapping scheme. The film delves deeper into the psychological aspects of the situation when, at midnight, Roxanne is jolted awake by a terrifying nightmare. In her dream, David, the kidnapped child, appears right before her eyes. Startled and still shaken, she calls out for Max, her partner in the plan. Max, concerned, inquires about what happened. Roxanne, still processing the nightmare, requests Max to check on David, ensuring his safety and perhaps seeking some peace of mind. Max, obliging her request, quietly makes his way to David's room. He finds the window open and carefully closes it, trying not to disturb the seemingly sleeping boy. However, to his surprise, when he turns around, he finds David awake and standing right in front of him. David, unnervingly calm, questions why his window was open and addresses Max by his name. Max is doubly startled, first by David's unexpected wakefulness and then by his familiarity with Max's name. David cryptically suggests that he can hear things even when not consciously listening, adding a layer of mystery to his character. Max, unsettled by the interaction, sternly instructs David to sleep and ensures the room is securely locked. The next morning, the group faces another challenge. Vince is agitated to find that his insulin, which he had stored in the trunk of the car, has been damaged. He blames David for the mishap. The others try to defuse the situation by suggesting that David's actions were not intentional. However, their discussion is abruptly interrupted when they notice David among them, having somehow escaped from his locked room. The group is shocked and concerned, as David has now seen them without their disguises, complicating their situation further. Max insists that he had locked the door and is baffled by David's unexpected appearance. Following this incident, Max and Vince head to the city center to purchase the insulin Vince needs, leaving Sydney and Roxanne alone at the hideout with David. The tension among the kidnappers rises as they struggle to maintain control over the situation and grapple with the unnerving behavior of David, whose mysterious abilities and insights continue to unsettle and perplex them. The plot thickens as Sydney confronts David, the child they have kidnapped, in an attempt to intimidate him into silence. Sydney recounts a fabricated story about a girl who was killed for not keeping quiet in a similar situation. However, David, unfazed and with a stoic expression, chillingly reveals that he knows the story is a mere figment of Sydney's imagination. He tells Sydney that the repeated telling of the story has led Sydney himself to believe it's real. This revelation shocks Sydney to his core as he realizes the truth in David's words. As Sydney retreats from the room, shaken and struggling to breathe, David coldly predicts that no one will be there to help Sydney with his impending heart attack. Sydney's plan to use only one car for their scheme backfires as Max and Vince have taken the vehicle, leaving no means of quick escape or getting help. In a desperate attempt to call for assistance, David picks up a phone and dials 911. However, Roxanne catches him in the act and snatches the phone away, fearing that their criminal operation will be exposed. Sydney tries to reach for the phone again, but Roxanne, increasingly uneasy about the entire situation, prevents him. This hesitation proves fatal for Sydney, who succumbs to his heart attack. Upon the return of Max and Vince, they find it's too late. Sydney has already died. David ominously marks off one of the figures in a sketch he has drawn on his room wall, symbolizing Sydney's death. The group then disposes of Sydney's body in the basement and drives to a distant location to contact David's mother, as instructed by their mysterious employer, Jones. Meanwhile, the police, having been alerted to the kidnapping, enter the child's mother's house. The kidnappers call her, ready to state their demands, and the police prepare to trace the call. During the phone call, David's mother asks for proof that her son is alive before agreeing to any terms. Max puts the phone on speaker for David to speak, but, to everyone's astonishment, David remains silent, defiantly sealing his mouth while staring intently at the phone and the kidnappers. Vince loses his patience and moves to attack David, but Max intervenes, ending the call abruptly. This impulsive action by Vince renders their efforts to negotiate a ransom fruitless. The police, unable to track their location, begin to fear the worst, that David might be dead. Soon after, the kidnappers find themselves in a state of disarray following the failed ransom call. Max, the leader of the group, decides that their next move is to contact Jones, the mysterious figure behind the kidnapping plot, the following morning. This decision comes as their plans have been frustrated, leaving them at a loss for how to proceed. That night, Roxanne is plagued by a disturbing whisper and a nightmare, a recurring theme that adds to the already tense atmosphere. The next day, Max leaves in his car to establish contact with Jones, seeking guidance on their next steps. Meanwhile, back at the house, Vince enters David's room to find the young boy amusing himself with a game of chess, playing alone. Vince, seeking to build a rapport with David, sits down and suggests they play together. During their interaction, Roxanne walks past the corridor, catching David's attention. David then makes a startling comment to Vince, suggesting that Roxanne still harbors feelings for Vince despite being with Max. Vince is taken aback by David's knowledge of his secret relationship with Roxanne and questions how the child could possibly know such intimate details. David cryptically reveals that he overheard Roxanne praying the previous night, asking for forgiveness as she harbors secrets. This revelation unnerves Vince. Compelled by this newfound information, Vince confronts Roxanne, interrupting her activities. He brings up the topic of her pregnancy, probing to ascertain whether he is the father of her unborn child. Roxanne's reaction confirms his suspicions. In a bold and possessive gesture, Vince removes Roxanne's ring from her finger and keeps it, symbolizing his claim over her. He then leans in to kiss her, further complicating the already tangled web of relationships and emotions among the kidnappers. The story intensifies as Max follows the instructions of the mysterious Jones. He arrives at a designated location and communicates with Jones over the phone. To Max's horror, Jones coldly orders him to eliminate David, reasoning that the boy has become a liability after seeing the kidnappers' faces and learning their names. Max, however, is determined to leave his criminal past behind and start a new, honest life. He adamantly refuses to comply with Jones's demand, unwilling to bear the guilt of killing a child. He strategically places the phone under a phone holder and conceals himself nearby, hoping to uncover Jones's true identity. Soon, a man arrives to retrieve the phone. Max cautiously follows him, hoping to confront Jones. After a tense pursuit, Max apprehends the man at a construction site and demands to know if he is Jones. The man reveals he's merely following orders and is not Jones himself. In a shocking and unexpected twist, construction equipment falls from above, striking the man on the head and killing him instantly. Him revealed that man had told him everything. He came here because he was dying and wanted to meet him before he passed away. The drawings on his wall eerily depict the same sequence of events, adding a supernatural element to the unfolding drama. Meanwhile, Vince returns to David's room and shows him the ring he took from Roxanne. David cunningly tricks Vince into handing over the ring. When Vince politely asks for it back, thinking it's a part of their game, David refuses and threatens to expose their secret relationship to Max. Vince's frustration boils over, and in a fit of anger, he throws a chessboard to the floor and forcibly drags David out of the room. As Vince drags David outside, the boy manages to break free and runs into the woods. Vince, realizing David has escaped, frantically chases after him. Roxanne, witnessing the chaos, also rushes outside, calling out for David in a panic. The situation reaches a critical point when Vince encounters David standing on a precarious sheet of ice. Attempting to approach him, Vince realizes the danger as the ice starts to crack beneath his feet. Deciding it's too risky to continue, he retreats, commending David for his cleverness and declaring that he'll keep an eye on him from a safer distance. David, in a calm and calculated manner, asks Vince how he plans to watch him, gesturing towards the other side. As Vince turns to look, he is startled to see a pack of wolves approaching. In a panic, he rushes onto the ice, inadvertently passing David. The ice gives way under Vince's weight, and he falls into the freezing water. Desperately pleading for help, Vince drowns, as David looks on impassively. At that moment, Roxanne, following the tracks left by Vince and David, arrives at the scene. David quickly shifts his demeanor, running towards her like any normal child would, masking the chilling events that have just transpired. When Max returns, Roxanne informs him of the tragic accident. Max retrieves Vince's body and places it in the basement alongside Sydney's, further adding to the dark turn of events. Later that night, Roxanne gets out of bed and heads to the basement with the intent of retrieving the ring Vince had taken from her and pocketed. Meanwhile, Max, noticing Roxanne's absence, leaves his room to find her. He discovers a ring on Vince's bed, strategically placed there by David. Continuing his search, Max goes downstairs and finds Roxanne rummaging through Vince's trousers with a torchlight. Startled by Max's sudden appearance, Roxanne drops the torch. Confronting her with the ring he found in Vince's room, Max questions its presence there. Roxanne, stuttering and overwhelmed with guilt, confesses her infidelity to Max, revealing the secrets she had kept during his time in prison. Max, unable to bear the truth of Roxanne's betrayal, decides to leave her then and there, despite her pleas for him not to abandon them. The narrative reaches its climax as Max encounters the mysterious figure Jones, who has orchestrated the entire kidnapping plot. To Max's shock, Jones is revealed to be none other than the kidnapped child David's mother. Confused and taken aback by this revelation, Max questions her identity, and she confirms it. She then discloses a startling truth. David is not her biological child, and he is far from being an ordinary boy. She claims that David possesses a sinister nature, having killed his own father, and expresses her desire to have him eliminated. Back at the hideout, a police officer, motivated by personal ambition, tracks down the location in hopes of capturing the kidnappers single-handedly. Led by David, the officer ventures into the basement. In a cunning move, David signals Roxanne to take advantage of the situation. He subtly suggests that if she doesn't act, she might end up giving birth in prison. Manipulated by David's insidious whisper, Roxanne murders the police officer. Confronted by the reality of her actions, Roxanne questions David about his true nature. In response, David chillingly claims he is an angel. He then insinuates that Max's soul can be saved only if Roxanne kills him, as Max is on the verge of committing a grave sin by attempting to harm an angel. When Max returns to the hideout, Roxanne, influenced by David's manipulative whispers, shoots Max in the shoulder. In a frantic response, Max fires back, believing he is targeting David. This tragic misunderstanding leads Max to the realization that David is a demonic entity capable of implanting malevolent thoughts in the minds of those who are susceptible. Fueled by this revelation, Max grabs an axe and chases after David. In a terrifying turn of events, David conjures illusions of dead bodies, causing Max to panic and throw the axe to escape the horrifying visions. When the illusions fade, Max is horrified to discover that he has inadvertently killed David with the thrown axe. In the final scenes of the movie, Max is shown depositing the money he earned from the kidnapping job into a donation box manned by a Santa Claus on the street. With a heavy heart and a mind full of remorse, he walks away from the scene as the movie draws to a close. Did this story spook you out? Let us know in the comments below. For more horror movie recaps, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you in the next one. Fear awaits you.